Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves.
How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for your advanced look at all of these collected editions coming out from Marvel Comics this week. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. Before going any further, a big thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these books. All of these books are due out in the direct market and book market on Tuesday, April 23rd or Wednesday, April 24th, depending on where you get your books. And we are looking at a different variety of collected editions, some digest size, but actually that's not really true digest size. It's a little bit bigger. Some new series, some limited series, some new epics, a big thickie, and we're going to be looking at each and every one of those. And as always, I leave timestamps in the description of the video so you can jump around in case you're only interested in one or two books, or in case you don't want any kind of spoilers. But before I go any further, don't forget to smash that like button, please. That goes a long way for us here on the channel. Very small thing you can do, but it means the world to us. Alright, let's go ahead and actually start with the smaller book, the Mini Marvel Spidey-Sense. Okay, so here we have Mini Marvel Spidey-Sense. This is another one of the mini books. And the back of the book right here. This is a mini book as it states. And there we go. It's a little bit bigger than the trim size of the digest books, though. I will say that, but here it is compared to the size of an Epic collection. So just a little bit smaller on both accounts, the length and the width of the book. There we go. But this one is definitely a book for young, ages 10 and plus. Honestly, I would have no issue with my 6-year-old reading any of the stories in here. So this is a collection of stories that feature Peter Parker as... This is the artwork, by the way. All of this done, I forgot to mention that, I'm so sorry, by Chris Giarrusso. And then you have the stories here. And Sean McKeever doing Spidey and his amazing co-workers, the Snowman, and then Mark Sumerak doing that. But Chris also supplying the artwork. And what it is him being a paper delivery boy, trying to get his paper delivered, or trying to get money for the service. That's what it entails. And then we have the Wolverine little story here, where all he's trying to do is go on a quest to buy a new box of cereal. That's it. We have the black symbiote costume, the alien symbiote costume, play a part in this. We have the Civil Wars, where characters are fighting against each other. And that's a small little anthology series featuring all these different characters from the Marvel Universe. So even though Spidey is in the front and it's called Spidey-Sense, there are a lot more characters back here. And then we have the Mini Marvel Classics, who the story and art by. And this book has 112 pages, and it retails for $13.99. And in the back is the ad for Double Trouble. Actually, the Double Trouble books are really fun. I kept them and gave them to my kids. Most of the time, I give these to viewers who have small children or young children that are trying to get into something easy. And this is definitely one that is easy to read, easy to follow, and just fun. It kind of shows you the fun of the Marvel Universe. Next up, Star Wars Dr. APHRA Volume 7, Dark Droids. Much like the Bounty Hunters, this is the final volume of Dr. APHRA for now, right? We don't know if she will be back later on for more adventures post Return of the Jedi, but right now, this ends her saga. So, collecting Star Wars Dr. APHRA Volume 2, that started in 2020, issues 32 through 40. Alyssa Wong still writing the story, Min-Kyu Young and Jethro Morales doing the artwork, Rochelle Rosenberg putting it all together with the colors, Joe Caramagna doing the lettering here, and then you have the different cover artists through here. So, this again taking place in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. But you can see how these books, even the ones that aren't ending, are getting ready to be there, ready to be at Empire. And they haven't made an announcement, I don't think, as of this video, when those books are wrapping up to make way for the post-Return. And I don't even know if they're going to do post-Return of the Jedi. I mean, I kind of hope they do. This gives you a quick recap as to what's happened with the Spark Eternal, which plays a huge part in what this is, the Dark Droids. So if you haven't read anything about Dr. Aphra or what's going on with the Star Wars universe, maybe skip this one, because I'm going to be talking about some minor spoilers to kind of give you the pitch of the book. Okay, Luke Skywalker has been kidnapped by Dr. Aphra, but she doesn't want to sell him for money or anything. She wants to take him to the Outer Rim to help him on this quest to find more Jedi. Again, this is post-Empire Strikes Back. And the things that have happened in between the movies, right? With Yoda revealing that he's one of the last Jedis, or could be the last Jedi, especially after everything that's happened to Obi-Wan Kenobi. We've had several crossovers in between there too. But this is him trying to find more Jedi, along with the help of R2, and of course your titular character, which is Dr. Aphra. And they do, but there's a little bit of a price when it comes to meeting these Jedi. So this is Shaka T and Ayala Sakura, and this is their story and how they ended up here at the Sasson Temple. And when I say there's a little bit of a twist, there's a twist and turns with what this temple is and who these two characters are and how they could possibly be there. But it's really fun to see Dr. Aphra just take a big lead role. I love this cover, by the way. A big lead role in a story with just her and Luke Skywalker. And then the rest of the book, with the exception of the final issue, which I can't reveal what happens because there's a lot of returning characters, is about the Dark Droids. And how this scourge has happened across the universe that involves all the Star Wars titles that are going on at this time, and how the androids and cyborgs and partial android people have been taken over by this scourge, and how Dr. Aphra and her gang of friends are fighting against it, and her part. And since she had ties to the Dark Spark to begin with, how it affects her mentally. But you can find out exactly how this ends. This book collects the final issues 32 through 40, and it has 208 pages, retailing for $24.99. In the back is where we're going to find our variant covers. So there's several ones. No mention of a follow-up omnibus, no volume 3 talk yet. Also, no mention of a Dark Droids omnibus either. Not as of this video, but who knows? Could happen one day. But that is Dr. Aphra, Volume 7, Dark Droids. Here we have Silver Surfer Rebirth Legacy. Now, if you've been following these Legacy books, they have been freaking awesome. This is the third one. We had Silver Surfer Rebirth. This is Legacy, so keep that in mind. And then we had, censoring that final page, Warlock Rebirth. So those are the two books that are supposed to be read before this. Now, this is all set during the 90s. So it's when Ron Marz was writing the story, when Ron Lim was drawing freaking Silver Surfer. So it's nice to see these two forces, as when it comes to the cosmic side of things for Marvel, come back together to tell more stories featuring the character of Silver Surfer. Don Ho is doing the inks, Romulo Fajardo Jr. is doing the color assist, and then you have the lettering being done by Joe Sabino. But I do think you should at least read those two volumes before reading this, because by now we have Legacy and Silver Surfer teaming up together. And because of what happened in Adam Warlock, the ramifications of that will be played out through here. So here we have Janice Fell, my favorite Captain Marvel. No, not Captain Marvel during this time, known as Legacy, hanging out with Norrin Rad there. And they're just going through space, and what ends up happening is they end up traveling through time to see things and to visit the original Captain Marvel, So Silver Surfer uses an Infinity Gem Sorry, we're talking about comics, so I'm going to go with Infinity Gem, not Infinity Stone. And takes Genis-Vell back in time. Now, you may be wondering, Silver Surfer would not do that. Like, I did that. I was like, come on, Ron, you know this character. He would never misuse the power to, even if it means something as heartwarming as reuniting a son and a father. Of course, even with the rules of, like, you're not allowed to interact or talk to him, he wouldn't do that. Well, as you find out in the first issue, he wasn't the one that did that. It was Mephisto that was manipulating him, looking like Silver Surfer, and he ends up using the time gem to throw Genis-Vell out there and be lost in time. Now it's up to Silver Surfer and Adam Warlock to go and get this character back. However, they're at odds with each other, because if Mephisto had been impersonating Silver Surfer, how long had he been impersonating Silver Surfer? And what could he have possibly done during that time to make Adam Warlock attack him, by the way? Yeah, if you're reading modern comics, hell yeah, you're going to be seeing some stuff like that here. And who Silver Surfer has to team up with to get help is wonderful. And of course, probably most people would see it coming. This book collects the 5-issue miniseries. The covers are all in the very front. There's really not that many variant covers. As a matter of fact, when we saw the ending here, the variant covers are on the opposite side of the standard cover. But there's not that many, and there's not any in the back. The book has 112 pages and retails for $15.99. I don't want to talk about it much more than that. I kind of wanted to give you a small taste of this. And in case you have been reading the other books, this is the third one in the trilogy. And I hope there's more, because there is something that happens at the end that could lead to more stories that features these particular characters during this time. And whenever you're throwing in an idea about time travel, you could technically write these stories at any given time. And some more variant covers right here. And that page of Surfer versus who is that guy? Well, find out by reading some modern comics, but that is Silver Surfer Rebirth Legacy. Spine-Tingling Spider-Man. And this one is by SALADIN AHMED. The scariest Spider-Man story you've ever read. Well, is that quoting anybody? Nope, that's just making a statement. Let's go ahead and open it up so I can show you this creepy yet amazing artwork by Juan Ferreira. And that is who does the art through here, Juan Ferreira. And SALADIN AHMED is the writer. You have Joe Caramagna doing the lettering with Joe Sabino. And, of course, Juan doing the covers. So Juan does the entire pencils, inks, and the colors. So this collects issues 0 through 4 of Spine-Tingling Spider-Man. It's 184 pages and it retails for $19.99. Want to hear the song Haunting Spider-Man in this issue? Gather your courage and scan this QR code. So it does come with the QR code to hear the song. So the song plays at the beginning. And, you know, it's not the first time we've used songs in a book or a horror story. Probably most famous one to use it. 1-2 Freddy's Coming For You, right? From Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah. But in case you haven't seen it, that's all I will say about it. What's really interesting about this is that issue number 0, this one here, is a long story. I had no idea. I thought it was like a giant size issue. But what I came to find out is that this was a web, no pun intended, a web comic. So it was a one-shot that was made up of just web comics. And that's where issue number 0 starts off. Now, we do have the rest of the issues in here, but I did want to state that the first issue, the issue 0, is a big collection of just the web comics. So, what exactly is going on through here? We mentioned a song, and what is that song doing? So, we have a sleep-deprived Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and what's happening is that there's a song that is going around and turning people evil. Now, whether that's happening in reality or whether that's happening in your dreams, you really don't know at first, because it's a really trippy book, and the art really helps out. You are going to see characters from Spider-Man's past through here that could be behind it, but then the more you read it, the more twists and turns it has. So you have somebody like Spencer Smythe and his son, of course, Alistair Smythe, through here. And when you start thinking about who these characters are and how long they've been around, by the way, this is really interesting. There's a decapitation here, even though it's a dream sequence. I'm always curious what these books are rated. So this one does have parental advisory for creepy imagery and violence. So who is going around and stealing these people's souls, maybe, and making them into zombies? And when you find out that there is a new villain, and this new villain is called the Sleep Stealer. I love, by the way, the design looks on them. He's going around and just striking at different people. And not just people in New York, but people in Spider-Man's life. There's some weird things that happen through here. And who is behind here? And if any of this is real, or could it just be one of his many, many nemesis that can play with his mind, like somebody like Mysterio? Well, I'm not going to spoil that, but I did want to showcase what the book looks like. Yes, all of this is issue number 0. Does Spider-Man get to sleep in this? Well, maybe a little bit. He gets to fight Spider-Side. Now, that's a character I did not think would be brought back. And like I mentioned, there's twists and turns as to who could possibly be behind what is happening to everybody. Collecting the 0 through 4 issue, I'm going to skip a little bit here, just to show you some more of this creepy artwork that just fits the tone of the book. And then we'll look at the back here. Censoring that final page and looking at the extras. And it has 184 pages, and the extras are, of course, the variant covers in thumbnail size. $19.99, and that's Spine-Tingling Spider-Man. Avengers Incorporated. So every week I do a seal of approval. This is the book that I suggest. I love this book. If I had 2 books to pick, this is a hard list too. Just like last week. This definitely would have been on the list. Oh my gosh, this is such a great book. I will say it helps to have read Wasp by Al Ewing. But this is Avengers Incorporated, action, mystery, adventure. And we have Al Ewing writing the story. Leonard Kirk, who I didn't really expect to be drawing this, but it works. Belardino Bravo doing the inks for issue number 3. Colors by Alex Sinclair and Corey Petit doing the lettering. So it all kicks off in the raft. And we see somebody get murdered, like shot in the forehead. And now Janet Van Dyne, our Wasp from Avengers, is coming to investigate what happened. So before I go any further, this is Collecting Avengers Incorporated, or I'm sorry, Avengers Inc. 1 through 5. Has 128 pages and retails for $17.99. So when she gets the call to go and investigate who could have murdered this person, it's interesting because she says this one was one of mine. So she takes it personal because the person murdered was Whirlwind. Now, this is when you see that there are 6 people in total that have been murdered. So you have characters like Piledriver and Griffin here. How do you even kill somebody like Quicksand is what I was thinking. Anaconda over here. And of course, I mentioned Whirlwind, who was stalking her, and you can read that in the pages of Wasp. That's why I said that. Oh, and Ice Master is also one of the people that died. Who and why, and more particularly, like, why did they all get killed in the same way? A shot to the head. So Luke Cage, who now has a different status quo here, sends her to go and investigate. This is a little bit of a flashback. And again, Leonard Kirk, I love this, and the color tones are perfect. So as she's investigating, and of course using her Wasp power, she goes into this world where these characters are still alive. Now, does that mean that she's dead and she is now in some kind of limbo with these characters? Or is something else going on? Well, this is an Avengers story, so of course something else is going on. And this is where you get the return of another character. Enter Victor Shade. And Victor Shade, of course, is the Vision's other identity. So with no costumes, both of them are trying to track down exactly who it is that is going around and killing these villains and why. And are these villains even dead to begin with? So it becomes a murder mystery with that crime noir thrown in there in the mix. And it's just such a good story. If you haven't read this, oh my, I didn't even know about this. I had no idea Al Ewing was writing an Avengers story. And it is so different than his previous Avengers because, yes, you will see some costume heroes through here. But most of the time, it's a crime noir story. I didn't know what to expect out of this until my buddy Peter and I were doing the upcoming Marvel solicitations, and this book popped in, and he was like, oh, it's such a good book. But all I want to say, because I want people to be completely surprised when reading this, just how great it was. If you've read Al Ewing's Wasp series that has been recently collected in a trade paperback, you're going to love this, even though it has a different tone, of course. And in the back, we do have some variant covers. And homage covers there too. And that is Avengers Incorporated, or Inc., sorry, Action Mystery Adventure. Next up, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, GROOTRISE. And if you haven't read Grootfall, there might be some spoilers here, so just kind of giving you a heads up as to what happened in the Grootfall book. Because I have to talk about a little bit of things that happened there in order to talk about this book. Okay. This collects Guardians of the Galaxy 6 through 10 from 2023 and Guardians of the Galaxy Annual Number 1 from 2024. Just, oh my gosh, like right off the presses, we're going straight to trade paperback too. This is the cover right here by Kiketo, who does a lot of the covers in here. Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing. By the way, I just found out, well, not just now, a while back that they are the writers of NYX. So I'm really curious about that book now. Alex Linz and KG Diaz doing some of the art in 6, and then Kev Walker coming in from 7 through 10 and Annual Number 1. Inkers Kev Walker and Walden Wong, Matt Hollingsworth doing the colors for those, and Corey Petit bringing it all together with his lettering. And then, yeah, Kiketo doing a lot of the covers, like this one here that they picked for the trade paperback. Now, in the first volume, we learned that the Guardians of the Galaxy have been wanted. Like, people are going after them. And you don't know exactly why people are going after them, why they're the most wanted. And it's been a year. And the more you read it, the more you found out that Groot had grown into this big oncoming force that is absorbing not just people, but their entire planets. So the Guardians in the previous volume got absorbed. And that's what is taking place here. What we're witnessing is a flashback as to how the Grootfall began with. What led Groot to become this big force? And how did the Guardians end up falling, and what made them the most wanted criminals in the galaxy? Especially when you have one that's a sheriff of the stars. But that's what the 6th issue is. And it is a really dark issue. Issue 7 is more about Hulkling and Wiccan trying to keep their empire together and trying to figure out how to defeat this group, because the Guardians are gone now. Groot has absorbed the Guardians. They could be dead or they could be Grootified. But what's really enjoyable about this, by the way, the course Empress Victoria or Captain Victoria shows back up, is the character study that happens within these issues. I heard that this series unfortunately got canceled. I would love to have seen more of this. This could have been something that could have taken place in 24 issues, and I would have been good reading it, but it looks like it was just kind of... I'm not saying the ending was rushed or it was awful or anything like that, because I was quite enjoying this. I was loving focusing on each character. Mantis has a big role to play in this, and I wanted more of that, and I thought, well, it would be really cool. This issue is excellent, by the way. If we could see one issue per Guardian and their just inner psyche and what makes them tick. You get to find out a lot about the characters this way. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Unfortunately, like I said, it seems like the series was just canceled, and we did get a wrap-up, and the wrap-up takes place in this annual right here. Where we find out what happens to the Guardians of the Galaxy And what happens to Groot? Do they end up destroying Groot? Does Empress Victoria betray her brother? Like, what happens to the connection between Rocket and Groot? I will say this ending here, the afterword, is one of the most amazing afterwards I've read in a long time. And I've read a lot. I love looking at forwards and afterwards and the preface, you know, when you have different writers. But this is both Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly talking about how the universe or the sun is going to explode one day. It's a dark, like, afterwards. Talking about how everything is going to come to an end. All the books we love, all the stories we love, everything. All of us, we're done. But then there's a little bit of a twist, even in that afterword. I love it. I thought it was great. I can't wait to see what they do with other projects. I was a big fan of their Captain America Scintilla of Liberty, so I was very happy to see this run. You know, the Al Ewing run to me was awesome. Guardians is one of those series that, you know, DNA came in and stole it. I was like, this is as good as it gets. But yeah, it's had its ups and downs. Everybody came in and had their own vision, whether it was Bendis or Duggan, eventually Al Ewing or Donny Cates, and now we get Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing. So this book has 144 pages and it retails for $19.99. And again, collecting Guardians of the Galaxy 6 through 10 and annual number 1. Love the Howard the Duck variant cover there. And it is that time of the video where I remind you to smash that like button, please. And to check out all of the spines of the books coming out this week. Alright, let's continue with the overview. Miss Marvel by Saladin Ahmed. It's another Saladin Ahmed book this week. This is one of the thickies, though. It's not a epic collection. They're no longer called complete collections. It's not a saga book, but it is a thick book compared to that epic collection right here. It's a big one. So let's talk about this book then. 408 pages, collecting the Magnificent Miss Marvel 1 through 18. So this is the collection that takes place after G. Willow Wilson ended up leaving the book. So you have Saladin Ahmed write the whole thing. You have Min-Kyu Jung doing the pencils. And you also have Joey Vasquez doing some of the pencils with Alex Arizmendi. Juan Velasco and Min-Kyu Jung doing the inks. Ian Herring doing the coloring. And Joe Caramagna doing the lettering. So again, after the events of G. Willow Wilson's run. So we have already Kamala Khan has been established as the new Miss Marvel. And in this particular series, we kick it off in another world where this father's telling his young daughter about the destiny of Kamala Khan and how she's supposed to be the destined one. We're introduced to the Deathbringer right here, who's a ridiculous character who will come back to play. We see the relationship he has, that Kamala has with her mother and her father, and just how different it is, how she's able to rely on both her mother and father when it comes to being a superhero. That is something that I really enjoyed about her, and honestly Miles, right? Because we've had all these tragic heroes like Spider-Man and of course Batman that have lost their parents. We don't have a lot of heroes that kind of have their entire family still with them, and it's interesting when their family finds out about them, just how supportive some of them are or how some of them react. We do have her supporting cast back from the original run, like Bruno right there. Now something is going on with her parents and of course the other supervillains that she's fighting through here. They're all turning into this gooey substance. She doesn't know what's happening. Her parents even get turned into this gooey substance. So it's up to her to figure out what is happening. So what's happened is that the alien that we saw from the very beginning talks about the destined one, the one that's supposed to come and save her, their planet. And that is revealed later on here. So she is taken to another planet, the destined one, and that's who she is. Now, not everything is sunshines and rainbows in this planet. I love the fact that her mom and dad decide to go with her. But she does get to meet somebody that has taken a liking to her. This young guy right here. This is Cheb Huda, who is the prince of this world. But like I said, there's a whole civil war going on. Not everything seems as it's going to be a great place to live. And what is she destined to be? Now, the most important thing... Oh, okay, a lot of things happen here. But one of the most important things is that as she's fighting some of these characters, I'm not going to say whose side she's on, she does meet a Kree spaceship. And she meets this AI that is called the Storm Ranger. It is a Storm Ranger that protected this world. And that's probably where the whole prophecy came from. Maybe. And what the Kree Storm Ranger does is give her a new outfit. She now has the ability to change her outfit. And it is called the Storm Ranger outfit. I say this is going to become important because that's what happens in the third act. So that's pretty much the first act through here. Something is going on through Kamala's personal life too. Her dad is sick. He didn't want to talk to anybody about it, so that he has to have an operation. And in the third act, we see the Storm Ranger come back to Earth and takes the costume back because she feels like she can protect it better. But of course, much like the whole alien costume saga, this becomes a big deal through here, throughout the third, especially the third act. And you can find out how all that fighting takes place and what ends up happening. Now, there is something that happens right before the last story arc through here. By the way, I love the fact that all the characters are back from her past. We get a brand new character named Amulet. But before we look at the next part, this all takes place after the Outlawed miniseries. Of course, they give you a quick recap as to what happened in that miniseries. And you don't need to 100% read it, but it is not collected in here. It also affected the champions, and pretty much it just initiated the Kamala Khan law, which means that no young superheroes can exist anymore. They're supposed to be with Guardians, kind of like the Avengers initiative that kicked off. So that's what it is. She goes up against S.H.I.E.L.D. She has to disobey orders because, well, we have a villain running around. And Amulet gets to play a big part in this. This was a great series if you haven't read it. I liked it almost as much as the original. In the back, we do have variant covers. And then character designs of new characters. And, of course, pre-existing characters with a new change. And then this letter page right here from issue number 18, so the final issue. 408 pages and retails for $44.99. And that's Miss Marvel by Saladin Ahmed. Here we have Avengers West Coast Epic Collection ULTRON Unbound. This is volume 7 of the Avengers West Coast, the years 1992 to 1993. I always love looking at those years to remind myself where I was in my life. That was my freshman year, a little bit of my sophomore year in high school. And I was heavily into X-Men, and I was heavily into anime, and I was heavily into every Marvel comic, Batman, and my folder was just growing. I had to get a job. I had to stop playing soccer. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Roy Thomas with his wife at the time, Dan Thomas. I don't know if they're still together or not. Danny Fingeroth, Len Kaminsky, Dave Ross are the main writers here. Herb Trempe doing some of the art, but Dave Ross being the majority of the artwork in here. Mike Manley doing those Darkhawk issues. MC Wyman, here are your inkers like Tim Zahn and Mike Manley. Al Williamson. Al Williamson's great artist. Bob Sharon, Kevin Tinsley doing some of the colors with everybody else, of course. And lettering by Bill Oakley and Steve Dutro and a bunch of other editors. So collected in here is Avengers West Coast 83 to 95. I believe we need one more volume to wrap up this series. Although they could collect Force Works and a possible other volume. Annual 7 and 8, and then material from Dark Horse Annual number 1, and Iron Man Annual number 13. 488 pages, $44.99. We kick it off with a Herb Trempe piece right here. And the return of Jim Hammond looking for the Avengers West Coast. However, he runs into the backup team, because during this time, the Avengers West Coast in the previous volume were off in space with the Avengers fighting in the Galactic Storm, Operation Galactic Storm, which was previously collected in the other volume. So he has to deal with the Hyena, and he has to get the help of the backup team. I love it. The next story in here is the Death Web, which is a trilogy that features Spider-Man and some arachnic characters, and also the character of Julia Carpenter with her daughter Rachel. And these are the death web. And who's behind the death web, and why do they want to destroy people? What is happening? Why do they blame spider people for everything bad? Then we kick off the crossover, Assault on Armor City, which is Iron Man centric, but it features a lot of the characters of the Avengers West Coast, because during this time, Iron Man is still a big part of the Avengers West Coast, but that's about to change, just like every other book when it comes to the Epic Collections. There's always a change up in the lineup, but it's nice to see Darkhawk being collected in here. Looking for this character right here. This is Savage Steel. But Iron Man and Darkhawk have a fight because there's a misunderstanding. He thinks that perhaps Darkhawk has stolen some of this Stark technology to build his costume. I swear, every time superheroes meet, there's always a misunderstanding and a fight. So that continues into the Avengers West Coast and wraps up in the Iron Man annual. But we do have backup stories like this one here, which is a quick recap as to what's happened in Scarlet Witch's life. This is a study in Scarlet, and I mean, not missing any of the big high points. It's kind of hitting them all right there. And because this is an Avengers West Coast book, all the backup stories are told through here. Yeah, man, the only Latino on the team, the Living Lightning, my dude right there, getting his own backup story. But it all comes to a close here with Assault on Armor City, Part 3. And the legendary Gene Colan does the artwork here. Freaking awesome. Somebody's kidnapped Rhodey, and now it's time to get him back. Put him in a costume and go and fight. Wolverine guest stars in the next few issues here. Dave Ross back on artwork. I'm a big fan of Ross. I've always been. Even back then, you know, we talked about all the great artists that went and pretty much the X titles took. I'm surprised nobody really pulled Dave Ross. I thought his art was stellar. I was a big fan of him. And then we have the Ultron storyline, which is, of course, what this is based on. And he doesn't come alone. This is the Ultron Unbound story. By now, War Machine Rhodey is joining the team, now known as War Machine. But in this story, when Ultron shows up, he shows up with a lady friend. And let me just show you who that is, because he takes everybody by surprise. They're like, what? Especially Hawkeye, who's now going as Goliath. But this is Alchema, also known as War Toy. I love the fact that he gives her an AKA. And she has the brain patterns of Mockingbird, which, of course, Clint reacts to. So he's like, Bobby? So there's this big fight between them. And that story ends up wrapping up to get us to the Goliath and Goliath fight, because it's such a ridiculous story where Goliath is mad that Clint has taken his code name. He's tired of people taking code names like Wonder Man and Luke Cage. And here is now officially War Machine becomes the member. So that means that Iron Man ends up leaving the team. And again, some great artwork here by Dave Ross. Not enough people talk about his art. And then we get the Avengers West Coast right here. That this came polybag, that introduced a new character because it came with a trading card. And that new character was Raptor. I'm not sure what happened to Raptor. But this also features the return of Ultron and Alchema. And in the back, we do have a few extras. And this book has 488 pages and retails for $44.99. We have Marvel Age 123 here. And the swimsuit specials. Lots of swimsuit specials. That one there's by Amanda Connor. Yeah, Amanda Connor. Gregory Wright. This is how it came, polybagged with the trading card. And original art. And of course, oh, that's right, there is a trade paperback. I forgot that this was, or had come out previously in this trade paperback. So, hey, giveaway pile it goes. Or maybe a library. Maybe my wife's school. Last but certainly not least is X-Men Fatal Attractions. This is Epic Collection, Volume 23, 1993 to 1994. And we are talking about Fatal Attractions, the return of a villain. So just in case, maybe some minor spoilers if you don't know what's happening through here, what some of the outcome is. But I'm talking about X-Men, and sometimes I get a little too into this. All right, so what does this collect? First of all, this collects Uncanny X-Men 301 to 306. Adjectiveless X-Men 24 and 25. And God, that looks so painful. To this day, I still remember Poor Selene, the Black Queen, getting her skin ripped out of her and then put back on. Ugh. X-Men Unlimited #2. I remember that one being really wordy. Wolverine 75. Gambit, the miniseries. All 4 issues included in here. His first mini. And then the X-Men Survival Guide to the Mansion. The book has 520 pages and it retails for $49.99. So we kick it off with issue 301. We have the return of Colossus after his big fight with the Executioner. And he can't turn human again because the Executioner wounded him so bad. But he's visiting his snowflake, poor Illyana, back to being a little kid because of the events of Inferno. But now she ended up catching the legacy virus. And this has horrible, horrible things happening to a child. Heartbreaking. Forge and Mystique being together after his breakup with Storm in the previous volume. And now being targeted by the upstarts. We have Bobby and Opal still dating during this particular time, with Warren being a part of the gold team. So this is still part of the blue and gold. But they're about to merge. But yes, Forge and Mystique are targeted by the upstarts. Of course, Storm has to go and intervene because, you know, that's her ex and this is Mystique and they swore to protect her. I love John Romita on the book at this time. I don't think I appreciated Romita at the time because I was all about Joe Mad, who's about to take over the book here in about a year. I was all about Jim Lee, and John Romita was just one of these guys that was like, oh, I don't like the square jaws, they're too bulky. But I think the older I get, the more I've learned to just appreciate him. This issue is so heartbreaking. I'm not going to go over it. If you've never... You know what? No, I am. Let's just talk about it. Spoilers. Sorry. Issue 303. This one is probably regarded as one of the most heartbreaking comics for X-Men. Because this is Illyana and how she is... Richard Bennett, by the way, one of his few internal pages, because he did the whole machine designs and all the things for the survival guide to the mansion in the back. But one of my favorite things about this is the return of Kitty Pryde back to the X-Men and bonding with Jubilee, because at the time they were so separated. Kitty was hanging out with Excalibur. That was her team. And there weren't a lot of crossovers that featured Excalibur. Excalibur was like the stepchild that everybody forgot about in the X office. So it was nice to see Kitty come here and bond with Jubilee, who's the young kid now in the mansion. They're both taking care of Illyana. Because remember, there's a whole history between Illyana and Kitty. This was her best friend, but that was when she was aged up, and now she's back to her real age. And she's dying of the legacy virus. Professor X gives her some... Like, puts this giant helmet on her from the Shi'ar Empire. But she succumbs and dies. Illyana Rasputin dies in this issue. And if you're reading comics now, you're like, what the hell are you talking about, man? Illyana's back. Magic's been there. She never died. Oh, man. My friends. There's so many stories in between this and what happened there with Darkchild and New X-Men. And yeah. Oh, I love X-Men so much. But this is heartbreaking. She dies. And you know, Jubilee's trying to act tough. Like, she, you know, she's a punk. Why did she leave? Like, and then she just breaks down when she realizes that she had treated her poorly. But Jean makes her realize, you know, that's not what life is about. I thought this was a really powerful issue. It really hit. And then we have this issue that leads into the big event. The prelude to Uncanny 304. Andy Kubert and company. I see some Bill Sienkiewicz as inks. Maybe a little bit of Joe Kubert as inks. I'm not sure who else was the inker. Maybe his brother Adam Kubert, who was inking stuff at the time too, but came on board to do the Fatal Attractions Wolverine issue. And then became the ongoing artist on Wolverine. But 304 is the return of Magneto. Right? We have a funeral. We can't even bury the dead. The Acolytes come and attack the X-Men. And now what they're doing is pretty much recruiting people for Asteroid M. This is Jay Lee. So you have a couple of artists here. And man, the way Colossus handles Illyana's death, that's rough. But as they're burying poor Illyana and they're going through this funeral, here comes Magneto. I love this confrontation between Colossus, right? The most purest and most noblest X-Men, and then all these awful things have happened to him since Professor X recruited him to be an X-Men. So Magneto comes down and offers people a place on his Asteroid M, and of course they all turn him down. Professor X is like, hey, you're out of your mind. They're like, okay, go and beat the crap out of him. And then the betrayal happens. As Bishop is just taking down Magneto, and they're all supposed to attack at one time, Colossus knocks out Bishop and decides that he wants to go with Magneto. Of course, Professor X is like, you ain't taking my people! And he loses that battle. Then we get to this real Fabian, man, he must have gotten paid by the word, but I loved it. I'm a big reader. This one's dialogue heavy. This is like a Roy Thomas Silver Age story. It is the story of this guy right here that's just trying to take down Magneto, and as many times that he's confronted him, and then when time comes to actually pull the trigger, can he do it? And then we get issue 3. Actually, we jump into issue 305 right here, which is Bobby and Opal centric, and a whole assassination attempt, and Rogue and Bishop infiltrating. Oh my gosh, this is another heartbreaking issue. We get the return of a character that got killed in the pages of the Extinction Agenda. But the big thing that happens here is Candy Southern. I already said spoilers, so it's Cameron Hodge. It's Candy Southern that comes back, but she turns out to be part of this mechanical organism that would later be known as the Phalanx. Didn't know at the time. But how could Cameron Hodge be part of that? And how can she, and she's just heartbroken when she finds out what she is. And then Warren doesn't know how to deal with it. Losing her again. It's sad. We get the Gambit miniseries that is drawn by Lee Weeks, Howard Mackie writing the story, expanding on the character and his supporting cast, not just Rogue, but we get a little bit more of Belladonna. And if you had seen what happened in the previous volume with Belladonna, how can she be here? We get to meet his family. We get to meet the guild, the whole Thieves Guild. And of course, maybe some of the externals that play a big part through here. And then issue 25, the big fight. The scans in here look a little bit better, honestly, than the scans that I've seen. But then the Fatal Attraction story has always been cleaned up better than most of the other crossovers or the comics around this time. Of course, we get the big confrontation between Wolverine and Magneto. And oh gosh, Wolverine, as many times as he's gone and confronted, jumped in the freaking front line to fight Magneto. Finally gets his adamantium ripped off. Wow. Ouch. Every pore of his body is leaking with adamantium. And of course, the fight that, Professor X turns off Magneto's brain. That's how he wins. But did he really win, or did he create something a little more menacing? Those of you that have read X-Men already know the answer to that. And then, one of the most powerful issues written in here, I think this one hits me more than issue 303. 303, I know, yeah, it's a powerful issue, and I know how it hits people. But this is the one that hits me more. This is issue 75 of Wolverine, written by Larry Hama and Adam Kubert taking over the book. And the whole reason I'm giving this one my seal of approval, this book, is because of this. There's a beautiful moment in here. Wolverine is dying, and he sees Jean Grey as his last hope. He sees her as an angel. At first, he sees Ileana, because he's having, hallucinations and visions. And Jean, comes to save him. He realizes that he can't stay with the X-Men. We get the whole idea that the adamantium claws were actually put on bone. That means that he's actually had bone claws. The first time we've experienced that. So he can't smoke anymore. He realizes smoking, his healing factor isn't what it used to be. So he leaves the X-Men. Beautiful art. And this letter, to this day, still breaks my heart. He leaves a letter to Jubilee saying goodbye and how she should stick with Charles. Oh, God, I love that issue. And then we get the X-Men Survival Guide to the Mansion, which is a really cool guidebook. Again, Richard Bennett's art for most of this. And uniforms, the mansion itself, the machinery, the rooms, the layouts, the Blackbird. I mean, it's all in here. I remember this actually came with, rings on it, right? Do y'all remember that? It came with, rings, like a notebook you had in school. And at the time, it was so expensive. I think it was $7.99. And then we get the extras. Marvel Age cover, the Fatal Attractions promotional poster there from Bob Larkin. The behind the scenes on how they made the 3D cards. Greg Capullo poster right there. Magneto #0 collecting a bunch of some of the backup stories from Classic X-Men, and then I think I collected Magneto #2. Oh, here it is. Reprinted Magneto stories from Classic X-Men 12 and 19 and an excerpt from X-Men Unlimited 2. So not all of it, sorry. The Fatal Attractions trade paperback. Introduction right there from the trade paperback. The trading cards. The Gambit #1, I didn't know about this, was published with a deluxe gold edition, which contains several bonus pinups. I had no idea about that. And Marvel Year in Review. And more of the Year in Review. Year in Review parody right there. Look at all those stogies. You don't see that nowadays. Wizard X-Men Turn 30. I love this cover. It had a chromium cover on it. Cable looking the way that he was supposed to be looking in his own series, but they shaved the beard off at the last second. Gold variant? What the hell? There was a gold variant? I remember the black and white. I always wanted that. And there, oh, what the hell? There was a gold variant of that. It's a good thing I don't get single issues anymore. The covers to the Gambit Classics trade paperback and the gold edition that I didn't even know about. And Fatal Attractions hardcover. Maybe that'll be reprinted one day in an omnibus format. 520 pages, $49.99. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor,
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more.
And that was the content and page count of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below which ones piqued your interest, which ones you're completely getting because you love the series in epic formats, or you're collecting the entirety of Star Wars, and what you would love to see in a bigger format, in an omnibus format. If you have any other questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.